Since the civil rights movement, the rate of single motherhood has increased from 7% to 40% as a result of benefits given to women who do not marry. Disincentivizing marriage disparately affects the single mothers and their children, as single mothers in essence marry the government and they and their children suffer as a result in terms of happiness, wealth, and well-being of the child. Women who attempt to raise the children on their own do not have time for proper child care as they usually work full-time, and particularly young boys will not receive the proper nourishment present in a two-parent household and will become disproportionately represented in crime and fall into a continual cycle of poverty. In order to understand this extreme increase in single motherhood, it is important to examine the causes of such an explosion in the rate of single motherhood. The major weakening of the family unit began in Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency, as he began a campaign called the War on Poverty, which disincentivized the institution of marriage, the number one force for combating poverty. A study in 2012 by the Heritage Foundation found that across the board, married families have a far higher income than unmarried families. This can be attributed to a number of factors. Generally, people who do not marry have less education and do not attend college. Also, a combined income of a father and mother will of course lead to higher income than a single parent. What Lyndon B. Johnson did was, he started programs that gave benefits to single mothers, and of course, if you were a single mother, you would do what you believed was best for your child. So you would pursue whatever allowed for the greatest income to provide for your children. Since the war on poverty began, taxpayers have spent more than $22 trillion fighting this war, which is 3 times the cost of all military wars in U.S. history. There are approximately 80 different programs now that aid single mothers financially that they would not receive if they were married. Before we evaluate the single mother and her motivations, we must assess the goals of the war on poverty and the metric by which poverty is measured. The goal of war on poverty was to ensure that each family had enough money on which to survive and make a better life for themselves. The term most people use is the pre-welfare poverty gap for families with children. The pre-welfare poverty gap is the total amount of money needed to raise a family under the threshold of poverty up to the threshold of poverty. In 2014, the pre-welfare poverty gap for families with children was $86.3 billion, so it would take $86.3 billion to raise the income of every poor family with children up to the poverty level. However, $40.2 billion was spent that year, which is about 4.5 times the pre-welfare poverty gap. The result of this is that single mothers on these benefits do not want to marry, considering that they would lose eligibility for the money that they receive. Consider the following data provided on the graphic. The excessive welfare provided to these families allows them luxuries to a certain extent. Single mothers will not marry when they know that they will lose the benefits of single motherhood as a result. To further explore this, let's examine the individual case. If a woman has 2 kids and is unmarried and works full-time at minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, her income after tax reduction is $13,853 respectively, which is far under the poverty line. However, she has access to many programs that increase her overall earnings. For instance, she is eligible for all of the following: $5,548 in cash benefits through the EITC, $1,800 in cash benefits through the ACTC, $3,974 in food stamp benefits, and $1,269 in school breakfast benefits. This amounts to a total of $26,444, 40% above the poverty rate. This amount increases further when accounting for Medicaid, which, depending on the state, can be anywhere from $5,600 to $10,000. Many argue that most people do not actually claim these benefits. However, seen in the graphic, these programs have a 90% to over 100% take-up rate, suggesting that fraud is even a problem. 90% of the people who take welfare are single mothers. Also, Section 8 housing is provided to 1.6 million different mothers, and will increase the income of this mother to almost $50,000. To provide further examples of this disincentivization of marriage, a single mother with 2 children who earns $15,000 per year will generally receive about $5,200 per year from the food stamp program. However, if she marries a father with the same earnings level, her food stamps would cut to zero. A single mother receiving public housing benefits would receive a subsidy worth on average $11,000 if she was not employed, but if she married a man earning $20,000, these benefits would halve. The welfare system creates problems for low-income people who face financial penalties for marriage. These exist in the EITC and other such organizations. You may ask, why is it a problem that these women don't get married? They end up with anywhere between $35,000 to $50,000 to take care of their two children household after all. The major problem is with the child's well-being, for while the mother may have enough to give her children a comfortable lifestyle, she is constantly working and cannot properly parent her children. This is particularly a problem with young boys, for they look for role models elsewhere and look for other ways to occupy their time. They have no one in the house to tell them that it is more important that they get an education, and as a result believe that a gang is the only thing that matters, as they will not make it past their teen years. Studies have shown that 70% of gang members come from single mothers. They must learn from role models that they teach them the importance of education and their worth so that they do not end up in poverty like their mother. To offer specific instances of these children of single mothers, the children of single mothers, they make up 63% of youth suicides, 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 85% of all children that exhibit behavioral disorders, 80% of rapists motivated with displaced anger, 71% of all high school dropouts, 75% of all adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers, 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions, 85% of all youth sitting in prisons. 37% of families led by single mothers nationwide live in poverty. Comparatively, only 6.8 families with married parents live in poverty, according to the data from 2009 compiled by the Heritage Foundation. The issue also divides by race and education. 71% of births are now non-martial with African American women, as are about 53% of births to Hispanic women. In contrast, 29% of births to white women occur outside of marriage, and overall, 40% of births occur outside of marriage. Only 11% of college graduates are not married, 59% of mothers with education less than high school, and 54% of mothers who are high school graduates. Also, 88% of children with at least one parent with a bachelor's degree live with two parents, while only 33% live with two parents who have not yet received a high school diploma. This further stresses the importance of education in high school and the need for fathers, because the racial gap lessens with married parents, as does the rate of high school dropouts. Thanks for watching.